So I had provided, her notes, all 3 statements that, I had now given, 2 recent, and, the statement I said, that I gave in 2005, that, copies of my journal writings, and everything that I provided just, his former, charges, and just all, I had these, I felt very confident that I had enough to get them to see that I wasn't lying, but I didn't have that rape kit. And so, a couple of days after that officer called me, I called and asked to speak to Mr. Mark Travado, and, pardon me, I am pretty sure, I don't know if I left like a voice recording or if I left a message with like a secretary or something, but either way, he ended up calling me back pretty promptly. I think it was a couple of hours after I had left this message. Anyways, so I was kind of like, started off like impressed, like he took me seriously and is gonna, he called me back or whatever. But so he gets on the phone, and he starts by saying, the police didn't tell you anything, and I was like, no. I said, they just told me that there was not enough probable cause, and I don't know what that means. I want to understand why you wouldn't take my case. And he goes, there's just too many problems. There's just too many things. And I'm like what? And so he starts to point out some things, and he says, he has a problem with some of the things that I say in my journaling. And so in my journaling, I wrote in there that I didn't write it in quotes in my writing, but for you, I'm quoting that I wrote that I let it happen. And so he said he had a problem with that because it's saying that I'm saying that I let it happen. And I don't know how much anyone who has never been through something like that can even begin to relate to the feeling that they let it happen to them, even though that's not at all the truth. I didn't let it happen. I didn't say, hey, use me as a rag doll and fuck me any way you like. I was misused, abused, assaulted, raped. And not even just by Dylan. So, the AG says he has a problem with me saying that I let it happen. As if that's what I meant. You know, I was like, hey, pick me for your torture device. Or torture me. And the Attorney General says some other things that in my notes that, you know, I was back in his apartment a couple days later, and because that's not notes from my journal, that's notes that were from my therapist notes from back then, and it said that, you know, I was back in his apartment several days after, and I tried to cut this man off, and like, you need to listen to me. You're not listening to me. You don't get it. I couldn't get past Dylan. I didn't know how. No, this is expecting me to be able to get out of something with him after he just exerted that much control over me. And I didn't want him to hurt any worse than that. That was enough. But the AG just wouldn't let me explain, and he actually, as I'm trying to talk and I'm crying, he very loudly and firmly says, "Let me finish." And so he scolds me like that, and I just sat down on the side of the tub and listened to him go on and on. After yelling at me, telling me just shut up, essentially. Not letting me explain anything. Not once did this man call me before deciding to not take my case. And so, I'm now sitting on the side of the tub, and he starts saying things like, you know, besides, we have to think about, the defense and, what they might say. And, he's like, I don't know, what was Dylan thinking in that moment? And did he think that he was raping you? Or, he goes, the other, the whose ass is this? He's like, we call that, kinky stuff. And so maybe he's into that. And so he's like trying to school me on what kinky stuff is by insinuating that him, asking me whose ass it was, and whatever my response, that it was kinky, and maybe he was into that. And then he said, hold on a moment. Sorry. He said, suggested that it was okay because if he was into kinky stuff, then it made it okay. And that, my plea for him to stop could have been taken differently by Dylan, as if that makes it acceptable. Sometimes it's almost like laughable, the things that men say and have said to me throughout this whole thing. Some of the things are just like the Attorney General also said to me that my therapist had written in one of her notes that I needed to set boundaries, and then I hadn't set boundaries because I didn't know how to. But he didn't want to hear that. You know, I tried to explain that. How can I set a boundary with someone who just did that to me? I just wanted out. I wanted out of that building. But anyways, the AG, you know, so he pointed that out. I'm sure there were some other things that I'm forgetting here, but I bet they're written down here eventually, so I guess I'll just wait and see if there's any more. Right now I'm struggling to recall all of the things that Betty said. November 3rd of 2022. This is a note from my therapist that she called the Attorney General, Mr. Peter Nerona, and spoke with a receptionist. She explained her reasoning for calling on behalf of me, asked if she could speak with the AG, because she also wanted to understand further the reasoning for not taking my case. You know, it didn't make any sense to any of us, to anyone, to my, you know, to my husband, to my therapist. It was just, I had proof. I felt that everything that I've had from, you know, years ago and stuff just all corroborated. Like, I've not ever changed my story. Not once. But what I had wasn't enough because I didn't have a rape kit. Anyways, my therapist's note here says that the receptionist said that she couldn't guarantee that he'd be able to speak to me about the case, and asked if she wanted to be connected with his voicemail to leave a message. She actually put me through to the assistant AG, and I left a message explaining my reasoning for calling. There's a note on the back here. She had received a voicemail message from Attorney General Mark Travado. He left his name and phone number. She says she tried to call back, but he was in court. The staff member who answered told her to call back when he was out of court around 3 p.m. She wrote that she called about 3:10 and was told Mr. Travado had gone out again. She asked about calling tomorrow, and she was told he usually comes in around 9 but goes to court for 10. So then my therapist made another note for 11/4 of 2022 at 9:10 a.m. She says she called Mr. Travado and was told he had gone into a meeting. And then she called again that same day, 11/4/22 at 3:10 p.m. And it says, called Mr. Travado and he wasn't in. 11/12 2022, she notes that she never got a return call after 11/3/22 from Mark Travato. That time he called and left that message with his contact number. So he never would get back to her, and he never did. Next we have here November 8th of 2022. Client session. I had contacted local attorneys to make an appointment for a consult about my case. No one was willing to take my case. She's planning to contact some other attorneys. Now we are at 11/18/2022. I had spoken on the phone with the police chief that day, because that was the day that I found out that they had notified Dylan. So, 11/18, and they told him on October 25th, so he had known for about a month before I knew that he knew. I would later get told, it's probably in here somewhere too, but I would later get told too that I should have just, assumed that, that was how it was going to work. Wouldn't I want to know if someone accused me of something? And, and I don't disagree that makes sense, but no one told me. No one informed me. Story of my life. It says that the Chief Chandrilla apologized to me, for not, he ultimately apologized to me. It's obviously upsetting to me. She wrote, at this point, she feels very discouraged because it appears that Dylan was given more consideration than she was. After all, we were worried about how he felt in the moment, and did he think he was raping me, or was he just into kinky stuff, and so it's okay. She writes in here that I want to continue writing my story and hope to find an attorney who could help me decide how to proceed from here. So I've started writing at this point. After the AG's refusal, I really zoned into writing, because I got so frustrated with my journaling, and how he twisted things into whatever fit his narrative for how this was going to go. I mean, I decided that I needed to be a lot more detailed and elaborate and fully explain things in writing. I didn't want my writing to be interpreted like that ever again. December 2nd of 2023. This is when Amelia tested positive for both the flu and RSV. Yeah, we were sick. We were all sick with the flu. So I didn't go see her. This was a telephone thing. I reported I hired an attorney who had received my story and had given me the go-ahead to publish it. I was, I hired an attorney because as I started writing, and, I was writing things that, the Attorney General, Mark Travato, said to me, and I was writing things, that, officers were telling me, or just mentioning names and different things. And so I wanted to talk to an attorney to make sure that, well, they can't make sure because they can't guarantee, but, I was worried about the actual possibility of being, sued. And ultimately, after hiring, I ended up, I'm sure it's noted here somewhere, but I ended up hiring a second attorney. And after, ultimately, it comes down to, I can say whatever I want as long as I'm saying the truth, and I am. All of it. I truly have been telling the truth since I was a teen, and I just wish one day someone would listen to me. I was never lying. He was saying that we weren't really optimistic, a newspaper would cover anything. I had confirmed with the attorneys that, they would represent me if I was sued or something. It says that I was considering Facebook as a way to put my story online. The next is from December 9th of 2022. I reported that I had now hired 2 attorneys who will co-represent me. Just says that I finally found 2 attorneys that I felt comfortable with. She says that this is an accomplishment and a relief, and it was. December 16th, 2022, heard from the attorney that, I should probably shorten it because it was already at 8 pages. The attorney tried to do some editing for me, which I wanted help with. I was feeling overwhelmed by the holidays and stuff. That was all 2020. Now we're into this year, 2023.